A pleasure to meet y'all at last, and for this occasion here in Bandtastic on HGN Season 3, I'm pretty much proud to showcase something that's lesser known. In the same way that you might not remember such bands that I talked about like Arctic Monkeys, Cage the Elephant, Saga, or I don't know, if some of y'all happen to recover or recollect such things about other bands like Blink-182 and Death Cab for Cutie, then well, that's kind of your own thing there. But the thing is, the lesser known extent of rock and roll, especially by the 1990s, happened to be quite a big thing at this very point in time. There were tons of examples of bands coming and practically going throughout that whole decade. And even beyond that point, it does seem that while some bands were able to live through such a big, important piece of our own history as a society, the 1990s was really bad for a lot of reasons. But yet, when the likes of grunge music started to take over the history of rock and roll and claim the whole world by storm, Creed, for example, happened to be one of those pure, full-fledged examples. They were highly prominent and actually were directly responsible at the time for allowing such grunge and even post-grunge squall to just shove on in and basically decapitate the likes of other genres at the time. So it just proved that rock and roll truly was never going to die. And even when looking into today's point in history, while people can try to bring such terrible genres like rap and country, there never can or will be a success that's any bigger than modern rock and roll. But the thing is, for grunge and post-grunge liability, Creed, a Tallahassee-based band which was first formed in 1994 and unfortunately didn't last too long, barely lasting a full decade into the early 2000s. However, they actually were able to revitalize themselves after a little bit of time and reform by the end of the 2000s. And even then, it didn't necessarily work out for them too well either. But we can at least give them credit that they at least had the courtesy and the guts necessary to pull this kind of feat off, where they could just disband within a decade after they formed, and even after their somewhat relative success back then, they still know that they've got what it takes to make rock one of the greatest things history has ever shown us in the history of music. Now, contrary to popular belief, such successes they made back in the day, like albums like Human Clay and Weathered, while they might not necessarily be looked upon as much as you might hear about such albums like any by Weezer or by All Time Low, it does seem that Creed has their own success labeled out for us. And I'm sure that someday someone will look back on these guys and make them not only a cultural phenomenon in the state of Florida again, as it has been done before, but maybe for the rest of the country, for the rest of the continent, for the rest of the hemisphere, for the rest of the world, and even beyond that, I guess only time will tell. Even if we do colonize other planets, there's really no telling what could go on then. But only time can and will tell how it all goes down. Nonetheless, I'd say that Creed, with the members it's had, the history that it's made over the years, or the decades I should say, being that in 2024 it will mark their 30th anniversary, I am certain that these guys can never be truly forgotten. In the same way that I've talked about other lesser known bands, I'd say with these guys not necessarily being up in line with other big titans in the history of music, these guys still cannot nor ever will be forgotten, because there are still hardcore fans out there, many whom are still alive and probably will be for a while. Otherwise, there's not much else I can point out here. So make sure you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, or basically anywhere you can find me, and stay on the Hollywood side if you'd like to see more